So when we consider, we've got women who are doing well educationally now. We've got more women than men entering the medical professions, entering the legal professions. We've got, I don't think more women than men, but a lot more women than we did have, entering professions around the finance houses. What we don't have, as yet, are women in the higher echelons of those businesses and those professions and those companies. We don't have women entering in great numbers in the medical profession to become consultants. Most women who go in become general practitioners because that's where you can work flexibly and you can work part-time, etc. In the legal profession, there are stories out of number of women who have done very well whilst they're single, work their way up in the big legal companies, they're doing very well. As soon as they have a child, any suggestion of wanting to work flexibly, wanting to change their hours is completely and utterly frowned upon, and the vast majority of women leave because they just can't stand it in those high, big high client level companies. And the same in the finance area. On the day that the Women and Work Commission report was launched in February of last year, I received an email from a woman who worked for an accountant, a firm of accountants, became quite senior. She had one child. It was quite difficult to work as the company required, but she managed it, and then she had another child, and she couldn't manage that at all. So she had to leave. And she said in her email, what I don't understand is, she said, I was told that I would have to be here at any time in order to respond to the requirements of the clients. And I don't understand how that is so necessary for me when most of the senior partners spend so much time abroad. How do they manage to meet the requirements of their clients when they're not in the office all the time? And the idea that you can only meet the requirements of a client by being in an office all day is quite ludicrous in this day and age. You can do your work from wherever, and this, you know, we're not talking about a receptionist, we're talking about somebody who can, you know, kind of got information technology at his or her fingertips. But the attitudes of those major high-flying companies towards women with children and men with children, the idea that a father would want to take a half day off to go to the nativity play or whatever it might be, is hugely frowned upon, gives very big black marks, and somehow or another these companies have got to recognise that life has changed around them, that the demographics of this country are such that they are not going to have all those young white men to call on, which is what they've been doing over the years. They're going to have to branch out much more, and at the moment we haven't quite got there. So, as I say, young women doing very much better, moving into the professions, but struggling when it comes to actually moving forward. And then, finally, I would say, I'm not the world's most cynical person, but I do kind of keep an eye on, you know, what's likely to happen. We are, at the moment, in a situation of good economic growth. There's been something like 2.5 million jobs added to the economy since this government came to power in 1997. So everybody is looking for people to participate in the labour market, and the government is keen to ensure, as far as they can, that they make that less difficult for women in particular, but families generally, to participate. What happens if we have a recession? What will happen if suddenly the economy doesn't need all those workers anymore? Who are going to be the first people to kind of lose their way? Who are going to be the first people who will no longer be able to participate because flexibility won't be on offer? You know, if you don't need the labour force, why bother with flexibility? If you don't need the labour force, why bother with making special arrangements for people? So I always have a really steady eye on all of this, because in my experience the equality agenda is such that if you take your eye off the ball just for 5 minutes, then it all starts going backwards. If every single meeting that I used to go to when I was working for the Transport Workers Union, when I was involved with the TUC, I was always hammering on about, well, what are you going to do about women? What do women think about this? And to such an extent, I used to bore myself, so I bored everybody else, rigid, I'm sure. But unless you keep on arguing, it just falls off the agenda somehow. So we have to kind of keep up the good fight, and we have to ensure that government recognises that women are here to stay, that families have changed, that men's attitudes towards ways in which the world of work ought to operate and ways in which their families should participate and join in have changed also. So I'm hoping we've kind of reached the tipping point, but I'm kind of not holding my breath.